Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Pasadena City College Board of Trustees. A little habit of the past slipping out there. In any event, January 19th, 2011, and let's start by roll call, please. Here.
Mr. Baum, Mr. Martin.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Dr. Fellow, Dr. Mann, Ms. Waugh.
Here.
Mr. Peck.
Here. Okay, we are going to go into a closed session item, and is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the Board of Trustees with respect to any of the closed session agenda items?
President Thompson.
Yes.
Just as a note, as a change to the closed session, that the first item that's listed has been removed.
Okay. Thank you. Then no one appearing, we will adjourn into closed session to discuss Government Code Section 54957.6, collective bargaining, PCCFA, CSEA 777, ISSU, and POA. Mr. Engeldinger is our designated negotiator. And also Government Code Section 54957.6, negotiation with unrepresented employees, confidentials, management association. Again, Mr. Engeldinger is our designated negotiator, and we will return at 7 o'clock. Oh, let me give you this before I forget it. Okay, the meeting of the Pasadena City College Board of Trustees is back in open session. There is no reportable action from the discussion we had in closed session. So, Ms. Brown, may I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. Please stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank
you. The first item we have on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the meeting of December the 8th, 2010. Are there any questions or additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and approved, or moved to approve and seconded the minutes of the December 8th, 2010 meeting. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
I'm going to abstain.
Yes, what you were,
People watch this on TV.
as I recall, you were, was it Lowry's across town or some such place?
I look okay on
I
TV.
was with 65 attorneys, Bill.
Oh, you were in good hands,
I
John.
deserve something.
Okay. With the board's approval, I'm going to, if I may, take one item out of order because we have a person who's asked to speak with respect to it, and that's consent item 89B, which is the recommendation from the PCC Foundation to place a name on the Court of Champions. Is it okay with the board if we take that out of order?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Bob Cheney?
President Thompson, trustees, my name is Bob Cheney. I'm a member of the PCC Foundation, have been for a long period of time. I'm here tonight to support the 89B, which is the naming of the Court of Champions in honor of Dick Ratliff. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm glad that you are here to speak to this. Dick is also a longtime friend of mine, I think probably of Mr. Baum and others as well. In fact, just one short vignette. When we first moved to Pasadena, our oldest son was at the age where he was learning to play basketball, and Dick Ratliff was his coach.
Yep.
So it goes back a long time. It's been a very close and good friendship ever since those days. So, are there questions or any? Jeff, I'm sorry.
Well, are we going to go ahead and take it out of
Yes.
order? So
Yes.
I'll move approval of this specific consent item.
Is there a second? Okay, we moved to second.
And I just wanted to say thank you to the foundation for bringing this opportunity for us to again honor Dick Ratliff. I know that there's no individual more devoted to Pasadena City College than Dick Ratliff. He played an instrumental role, and he probably is going to be embarrassed by the fact that we would be honoring him in this way, because he's always sought to be a behind-the-scenes person, and he was one of the individuals that helped start the PCC Foundation more than 20 years ago, and has just given his heart and soul to this institution, as well as his financial resources. Yes. So I just want to thank you and your colleagues on the foundation board for giving this opportunity and giving the board at this college an opportunity to provide recognition to somebody who's done so much for Pasadena City College.
You're welcome, and I'm glad you recognize that, and I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, Dick Ratliff is another individual who has been affiliated with this college and done very, very well, and just really brought great credit to Pasadena City College. He was president of the Tournament of Roses Association when in 2003.
Parade of 1999, last parade of the century.
Right.
Yeah, so very good individual. Okay, all advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay.
God, I'm getting freaking fat.
Move back now. Introductions, announcements. Are there any introductions or announcements, Dr. Rocha?
I have none. I have one or two under E.
Okay. Anybody else have introductions or announcements?
Actually, I have one announcement. Actually, no, I don't. I think it's the other section, right? Or can I just say what I need to say now?
Why don't you wait until we get
Yeah.
to the item E and Board of Trustees reports and recognitions. Okay. No introductions or announcements. Is there public comment on non-agenda items? Something is not on the agenda. Anybody want to address the board with respect to that? Okay. Now let's move on to reports and recognition. Trustee Brown?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to take a few minutes to give recognition to Dr. Jacobs. I had the opportunity to go to Jackie Robinson this past Monday as we celebrated Martin Luther King holiday. And she and her committee had an outstanding event. They do this every year, but why I'm taking the time to recognize her is because she just do in the community. I went to that event, which was outstanding. It was a good time for the students, a lot of student participation from PUSD. Her husband and her just go around just everywhere. The first, I'm not sure how many of you saw this flyer. It's a 1-month calendar that she put together to celebrate and for us to remember the legacy of Martin Luther King, which I think we all that's in this room, one way or another, have benefited from his legacy. Not only that, but she also partnered, she didn't know I was going to say this, so. She also partnered with the city of Pasadena to put off their first event, which was rekindling the light of peace down at City Hall. And I just wanted her to know that I appreciate the work she's doing, and we want to keep our kids and us all in tune of what Dr. Martin Luther King legacy is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Other announcements or recognition reports, Jeff?
I just wanted to did you have anything? I wanted to report on the Board of Governors meeting last week in Sacramento. First off, it was dominated by the news from the governor's office on the state budget, and I'm sure we'll be getting a report on that later. But the governor's proposing a $500 million cut to the community college system budget, and we'll hear more about how that will specifically impact PCC. There were a number of other issues that we're wrestling with on the policy level. Active debate. I know Academic Senate President Martinez has been involved with the prerequisite policy setting and a change to that's being proposed by the Academic Senate. So we'll be involved with that. There is going to be something that I'm hoping PCC is involved with respect to awareness and engagement of the community college system and appreciation of the state for the community colleges. The foundations are partnering with a statewide effort on April 17th to do something to recreate the Hands Across America phenomenon that happened 25 years ago with the Hands Across California's community colleges. And I'm passing by a postcard that's been announced, and it's going to be the final push to raise the resources that is part of the Osher Challenge grant, and they're hoping that Pasadena City College is an active participant in this statewide demonstration of support for the community colleges. We adopted a state and federal legislative program that we're hoping can be passed, including the legislation that will provide for the backfill of the property tax revenues that have been traditionally cut from community colleges, as well as some other regulatory issues. But the last thing I'll mention is that we appointed a statewide task force on student success to address some of the issues that have been raised in legislation about how do we get more students across the finish line than enter through the doors. And a member of that task force is Dr. Jeanette Mann, who will be representing the Community College League on that task force.
Good. Mr. Pack?
No reports.
Other trustees? One thing I wanted to point out in the little publication that comes out from the Pasadena City Water and Power Department, this is for the month of December of last year, under current news, they have as their customer spotlight Pasadena City College. And they point out that we received a national award for sustainability efforts during the American College and University President's Climate Commitment Leadership Summit, October the 12th in Denver, Colorado. And they go on and make a full-page announcement about this. So I think it's good that the college gets recognition, particularly from our city. And so it's one more award that we've received and one more good thing being said about Pasadena City College. Dr. Rocha?
Right. And thanks to Rick Van Pelt for spearheading that effort. A couple of quick items, President Thompson. First, you'll see Trustee Mann, President of the CCCT recognition. We point out we will have an appropriate recognition for Dr. Mann, who has been elected President of the California Community College Trustees. and sometime at a later meeting we will have an appropriate recognition. So we will not do that tonight because Dr. Mann is away attending the task force that Trustee Baum alluded to, the statewide task force that is just now convening. So she is on duty on behalf of the district, and the reason why she's not with us today. I did want to just briefly second Trustee Brown's recognition of Jackie Jacobs. It was a privilege to be part of that. And most of all, I just wanted to recognize our UGMA students who were there, and Professor Kiara Thomas. And we're just so proud of them. They show us off so well. And it was just a wonderful event on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Final thing, just by way of a very, very brief report. Of course, we are all aware and deeply concerned about the events in Tucson that involved the shootings, and of course our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims. We have convened a group here at the college to begin an assessment of our procedures to identify students who may be in turmoil and may require some assistance. So I just wanted to flag to your attention that Vice President Wilcox is heading that up, and that we intend in short order to bring to you, first of all, a report on what we're doing to identify and assist students, and recommendations for what we can do better to make sure that we're doing two things. Number one, seeing to our responsibilities to the students, and also ensuring the utmost safety and security of the campus. So I just wanted to flag that to your attention, and that concludes my report.
I did want to just add a little emphasis to your comments about Dr. Mann. She officially takes that office, I think, in May of this year in Monterey, and it would be my hope that we could arrange to be there for that and help with the celebration and provide some special recognition to Jeanette for her hard work and the tremendous task he's going to be undertaking as the leader of the California League of Trustees, especially in this economic climate that the good state of California finds itself in. So stay tuned, and there's a great opportunity. If you've not been to Monterey, you don't really need too much arm twisting to want to go there. So I'm hopeful we'll have a turnout for that one. Let's see, Ms. Hammond?
No reports.
Mr. Lindeman?
The Classified Senate had their normal business meeting today, and somebody's arm got twisted to show up here right at the moment. So we'll stay tuned for further developments.
Mr. Martinez?
Just a few items. On this occasion, you do not have a copy of the Senate nanoseconds since the Senate board has not been meeting recently. You do, however, have a copy of the Senate rostrum, which is a publication of the statewide academic senate. It's just a variety of articles on a number of the issues that the Senate and the community colleges in their entirety are dealing with. I did want to let you know, however, that the Senate has appointed representatives to two new shared governance campus-wide committees, the Enrollment Management Committee, and I will get the list of appointees to the Budget and Resource Allocation Committee tomorrow. We have received word on the proposed changes to Title V regulations on course prerequisites. We're waiting to see, of course, what action will finally be taken by the Board of Governors so that we will be in position to respond quickly to the changes if approved. And, of course, those changes would permit us to establish prerequisites based on content review. And then finally, I hope that by tomorrow, we will have a ranked list of recommendations for faculty hiring positions that we will forward to President Rocha. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Douglas?
Well, the Management Association will be having its winter meeting next Monday, and we have a couple things on tap we hope to be reporting back on coming out of that meeting. And we're also right smack in the middle of a very transformative professional learning opportunity that we've been part of. Half of us have gone through it. The other half are slated to go through it in another week or two. We're calling it the Leadership Journey, and it's been quite a unique opportunity. So we appreciate that.
Ms. Colress?
Nothing but Happy New Year.
Mr. Miller?
Nothing to report except to say that Dr. Roach is keeping us all very busy.
Well, that's good to hear.
It is good to hear.
Ms. Chapman?
Just one item. We've been notified by Becky Olson, who is the Executive Director of the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations, that our entries in banners and outdoor and in media social marketing will be receiving awards this year. This is a national recognition, more than 1,800 entries, and that will be held in March at the Penn's Landing in Philadelphia. So again, a lot of congratulations to the public relations team and to Juan for another outstanding job. So we're delighted with this this latest recognition of what's going on here at the college. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Dean Engeldinger?
No report.
Dr. Sugimoto?
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Since Mr. Baum mentioned the Hands Across California, I wanted to mention our launch of our campaign called Raise Your Hand for PCC that started January 1st. In fact, we had a large banner out in front of the college, which is going to be integrated into the Hands Across California as part of the OSHA campaign. But it's also going to be part of our annual fund campaign every year. So the Raise Your Hand for PCC has really gotten off to a good start. We just did some videotaping today with Juan's group, with Mr. Gutierrez's group, so I'm very pleased to let you know that. Also, we are working through a very large bequest right now from the Westerbeck Trust, and so we will be talking about that some more in the future. But thank you very much.
Dr. Wilcox?
No report.
Dr. Jacobs?
No report.
Dr. Van Pelt? Fantastic. Moving right along here. Okay, approval of consent items. Are there any consent items that anyone would like to have taken up separately?
Motion to approve.
Wait just a moment. Let me, Mr. Baum?
73P.
73P. Okay. Any others? There's one I'd like to have is 90B. The authorization to negotiate and enter into agreement with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority and Foothill Transit. Deal with that one separately, please. Any others? Okay, your motion was to approve all except those two, right, Dr. Fellow? That's just how I understood it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions about any of the other consent items? Any advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Let's do 73P first.
It's the. I just wanted to raise a point about the approval of sabbatical leaves. It's sometimes the board and the district get questioned about their careful fiscal management of college resources, and in previous years we've actually been forced to reduce the number of allowed sabbatical leaves that we're able to grant to faculty because of the fiscal situation. And nobody can argue that we're in as severe a fiscal crisis as we can imagine. But thanks to the careful management of the resources of the district, we're able to award a full complement of sabbatical leaves this year. And I didn't want that to pass without acknowledgement, because it's an indication of how much this board is willing to invest in the professional development of its faculty of this institution, and how much the board values each individual member of the faculty, that we were able to make the sacrifices needed so that we didn't pull back on sabbatical leave awards this year, but actually gave a full complement that is allowed.
Other questions about this item? Would you make a motion to approve it then?
I'll move approval of sabbatical leave.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Let's move into 90B. And the reason I wanted to have this held separately and addressed separately is that we were given a sheet of paper that dealt with some of the issues that pertain to this matter. And I thought that rather than just having it pass as part of consent, we ought to spend a little bit of time just addressing it. So perhaps, Dr. Rocha, you or someone could just take us through this in a brief overview.
Sure. Well, first of all, this is back to the issue of the iPasses, and in your packet, in addition to the actual board item 90P, you should have a document that is titled Student iPass Program with today's date on it, and that has been prepared by Vice President Van Pelt. We reviewed this today in Executive Committee at some length, so I suppose the first thing is I'd ask Rick to do is to explain what the board action is, what specifically the board action is and what we're asking the board to do, and then part one, and then part two, what the significance of that are and the policy implications, and then to answer any questions you may have. So,
thank you.
Okay, what we're asking for is authorization to enter into an agreement with both Metropolitan Transportation and Foothill Transit. This program started last spring, just about this time, and we sold about 1,030 passes for just MTA. We had kind of a late start then, which I think explained the lag in sales, and then we extended the program for the summertime, for the fall during the summer, and this time we sold 2,224, and the program was expanded to not only include MTA but Foothill Transit as well, which meant that students with a single pass could use the entire network of both systems. And the cost was significantly subsidized through parking revenues. And the 50% of the base subsidy was also picked up by the student activity fee, so the students picked up the tab for half of it as well. So what we're asking for is to continue the program. It has had tremendous impact on the students. 23% of the full-time students have bought a pass. This past semester was the very first time in anyone's memory that we've had zero complaints about parking on the campus from students, from staff, from visitors. It's a remarkable achievement, but when you're taking that number of vehicles off the road, we can expect good things. It also helps us out coming into construction because we're having to take some of the parking offline. So for the students who are paying the daily passes and the semester parking, essentially what they're doing is subsidizing those students to take public transportation. And in terms of the sustainability effort, clearly it is very much in keeping with our goals towards sustainability of reducing single driver vehicles on the road.
One thing I was not clear from the reports, either one, what is it going to cost the district to have this program?
This past semester cost about $32,000, and $32,000 to be picked up by the student activity fee. However, the other thing that we're noting is that the number of semester parking passes that students are purchasing is declining. It's somewhat difficult to get an exact number because the semesters float into each other, and you can't tell unless you took a read on a specific day with a read on the next specific day. But even then it's difficult because the programs themselves have changed. But we are noticing a decline in the number of semester passes. And therefore I'm estimating that last semester would have cost close to $150,000.
Other questions? Or?
No, and just to clarify, of course, that is not an expense that comes from the general fund.
Correct.
That is an expense that it is an expense, but it is an expense that is entirely funded by the parking revenue.
Correct.
One of the things that we will discuss as we move along is how this fits in terms of policy. And I just ask the board members to keep in mind, and I ask the college community to keep in mind that if we, in our educational master plan, we've set out as one of our mission critical goals of sustainability. To achieve that goal, I think we would generally agree that we need to reduce car trips to campus as we are doing. But reducing car trips to campus, clearly has a cost. And at this point, there's no getting away from the policy implication that the cost of reducing car trips to campus is being subsidized by those who are paying to bring their car into campus. And if we want to continue to do that, we may have to look at a continuing kind of policy that continues to capture, the public transportation subsidy from those of us who are driving onto campus and buying a pass. I just wanted to. That's not something we're bringing you to today. All we're asking you to authorize is for the Vice President to move forward and negotiate a contract.
Mr. Baum?
Did you want to go, Nolan, first?
Yeah, just a brief comment on this. I think I may have brought this up before when we talked about this item, but I have to point out how amazingly, I guess, responsible the administration has been in enacting this policy. I know that there are other community colleges, most notably the LA9, who tried to implement or did implement an IPASS program. It was not funded sustainably, and now they're struggling to determine whether or not they'll be able to offer that to their students anymore. And the fact that we're even having this conversation about making the IPASS a long-term thing at PCC so that it will continue to benefit the students, I think is incredible and is really a testament to the fiscal responsibility of PCC as an institution. I'm really, really thrilled that we're able to continue to offer this service to students. That's wonderful, of course, for sustainability, but also for student access, so that students who may not have otherwise been able to drive are able to get a really low-cost way to get to campus. So it does make everyone's life a lot easier, I think. So thank you.
Mr. Baum?
Two questions. One is, first off, pegging off something I remember Mr. Pack raising earlier. In order for this to even be more successful, it would be great if it could be offered as part of financial registration. What would it take for the college to implement that?
What we need is a longer-term relationship with MTA, and MTA is in the process of changing its system itself. And we have some technical hurdles that we have to overcome in that regard. What they're after is a fully magnetic, individualized card. Right now what happens is there's a sticker that gets attached to the student's identification. Mm-hmm. And what MTA would like to do is to have their own card with a picture on it so that it's a magnetic thing, and then they can read and do all their data retrieval. In order to accomplish that, however, it's going to take a little bit of time. What needs to occur is we need to be far enough ahead of the curve to be able to offer that. And the idea is that upon registration, the students will then be presented a screen to where they can choose between a semester pass, having an iPass, or buying both. And then it would just be processed that way. In order to do that, though, like I said, we have to overcome some technical issues with MTA.
Mm-hmm. And so can somebody buy their parking pass through financial registration right now, or is that a separate process?
What it does is there's a link to the web server that actually sells the parking passes.
And then lastly, you indicated it's $32,000 plus about, something over $100,000 in lost revenue for the parking permits. What would we be using that funding for otherwise, and what will we not be doing as a result of that?
We've been saving money in the parking program for the last few years in order to purchase a closed-circuit television system that is the board has approved us now to install. So we're in the process of installing those. I think that what we're going to find, however, is that as we've installed all those closed-circuit televisions, we will experience a drop in demand for those funds, at which point we can cover the expense.
Do you expect that in the time we would be looking at this for this coming fall, that we'd have enough information to have perhaps a more thorough discussion and see where this program may be leading us to?
And what we probably need to do is do it somewhat ahead of the fall, sometime during the summer, to allow us enough time to actually implement this on a really timely basis. But certainly, we can agendize it.
Okay. Other questions? Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Okay, move and approve it. Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's now go back, and I believe the next item we have is our audit report. Receipt of the 2009-2010 district financial audit. Discussion with possible action. Dr. Van Pelt?
Okay, and I did notice that Heidi White from VTD Certified Public Accountants is here, and if she can do the presentation and answer whatever questions.
Welcome.
Thank you, and welcome. Happy New Year to all of you, and really nice to be here to present your audit report to you. There's a couple of things that I'd like to go over. We did go over the report in the Audit and Finance Committee in a lot of detail, but I think some of that highlighted some areas that I'd like to share with all of you as well tonight, and then I'll open it up for any other questions or comments that you might have. I thought we would start first with just page 2. And it might seem like we're going to go page by page, but I promise we won't. This is a very important page because it is our opinion on the financial statements of the district. And I'll call your attention down to that third paragraph, as I normally do, that states, in our opinion, the basic financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Pasadena Area Community College District and its discretely presented component unit, which is the foundation, for the years ended 2010 and 2009 in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. This is an unqualified opinion. And there always seems to be a question, well, we like to have things qualified. We want to qualify for something. But in the case of the opinion, an unqualified opinion means that there's no exceptions. It means that this is the highest form of assurance that we as your CPAs can give you that the financial statements meet all of the appropriate standards, and this is actually a very good thing. We have also included that next paragraph down, which calls your attention to a note that I'd like to go to in just a few minutes, note 15. I heard a little bit earlier the discussion of the financial condition of the state of California and the impact on Pasadena Area College. In the last couple of years, we felt that that was significant enough to actually add a note to the financial statements so that the readers understand that information that flows throughout the state impacts directly what the financial condition of Pasadena Area Community College District is. So we'll go over that in just a moment as well. I think as far as the financial statements, I'd like to call your attention to page 12, which is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net assets. There's some significant areas here that I think that really reflect on the district as a whole. Number one, even though it looks like right up at the top, tuition and fees is very stable year over year, about $19 million comes in each year. What is significant about that is the increase in scholarship discount and allowances, up from $5.7 million to $6.8 million. Those are the BOG fee waivers, reductions in tuition to your students. Combine that with student financial aid expense, about halfway down the page of $27 million. Totals about $34 million in direct student financial aid that was provided to the students of Pasadena City College. That's in the form of grants, loans, reductions of tuitions and fees, and really helps to make sure that your students are accessing the programs that you're offering during the year. Within the financial statements here, you'll see that there are several areas year over year that have had either significant reductions. I look particularly at salaries. There's a lot of open positions. The district's funding sources from the state of California, both in the form of apportionment and state categorical grants, has been significantly impacted the last 2 years. As a result, we know that you have open positions. From an audit standpoint, we look at that to see if there is a reduction in the internal controls. Is there a reduction in services that are being provided that we need to comment on? When we go through the findings and recommendations, you'll see that for this year, that is not the case, but it is something that we look at and we spend quite a bit of time going through to make sure that these open positions are not impacting negatively your operations and services. I would like to talk a little bit also about one of the liabilities of the district, the other post-employment benefits. And if you look on pages 40 through 42, basically, we have a rather long footnote that talks about the post-employment benefits, your health care benefits that you provide not only to your current employees but also to your retirees. For the last several years, this has been accrued as a liability of the district. There's been an actuarial study done that shows that the total liability that will be owed is about $13.3 million. That's being amortized and brought into the financial statements over time. The district at this point in time has not technically funded that liability. It is a liability on the financial statements, but it's not being moved into a trust fund separate from the district. We have noted, however, that about $13.8 million has been set aside in your self-insurance fund to make provision for this liability. That's a very prudent thing that a lot of the districts throughout the state have not been able to do as of yet. They're recognizing the liability, but there's no related cash set aside for it. And so I would just point that out, that even though this liability is a future liability to you, you again are acting in a very prudent and conservative manner by trying to get that liability taken care of with funds set aside in a district fund. An important kind of blank page is page 55, which is where we would normally list any and all adjustments that we've made to the financial statements of the district. And as you can see, this is a blank page. The financial statements that were provided to you in September and October and were reported to the State Chancellor's Office were the basis for our financial statements, and we had no audit adjustments as a result of our procedures going through all of the transactions that we did. So very good reflection on the controls that are in place during the year. We do have some comments in the back, both current year and a follow-up on prior year. In 2008-9, we had 6 total comments. 4 of those were completely implemented. 2 of them are in process and will require some additional work during the current year. In 2009-10, we included those 2 comments, and we've added 1 additional one. But as we look through, we see that the district has been consistently addressing comments each year that we bring forward to you, and I think the history is they're implemented within the next year. If at all possible, if it requires an extended amount of work, it may take 2 years to get those implemented. But I think as you read through the responses, you'll see that the district is being very proactive in this area. Those are kind of the areas that I thought I'd point out to you just as we went through, but I know from the committee and others that there might be some other questions. I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Mr. Baum?
We should just point out that the audit committee did convene on Friday of Mr. Thompson, Mr. Martin, and I to review in detail almost 2 hours in line by line to go through the audit.
Right. Other, Ms. Hua?
On page 30, under the custodial credit risk deposits, I wonder, I didn't see an action taken. I wonder if you can comment on that. Page 30, under the custodial credit risk deposits, there were comments made as to the risk and the exposure, but I didn't see action taken by either the organization or recommended action. So if you could just comment on that.
The custodial credit risk here is to provide additional information to board members and other readers of the financial statements that as you put money into financial institutions, as you know, over the past several years, there's been risk that's associated with that. Not every dollar may be subject to the FDIC insurance. Being a governmental institution, your banks are required to put aside investments at about 110% of the value of your deposits that are there. However, they're not specifically set aside in your name. So there is a little bit higher risk associated with that, but that additional investment policy of the bank is to mitigate any of the risk should the bank fail, go under, be taken over by the FDIC.
Okay.
So that's just something that you need to monitor from time to time to make sure that your banks are well capitalized and you're monitoring where it is that you're putting your money.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Martin?
Make just a couple real quick observations from the audit committee. On page 45, note 15, was alluded to by Heidi. At one point, the district was owed $16+ million by the state of California, where the revenue was owed and it was deferred. And fortunately, the state paid that back, but it shows the tremendous need to have a cash balance to be able to sustain a $16 million loan from the state. And so that's just a warning to us all that sometimes we look at an ending balance and it momentarily seems to be an extraordinarily high number, but during the course of the year, 16 million of it wasn't there and was on loan from the state as deferred revenue. The second thing that I was going to maybe point out is if you ever wanted to see a one-page summary, if you go to page 67, the federal government, through great wisdom, has decided that these questions need to be answered. And actually, it's a great idea because you get to see all the answers you need to see in just about one sheet. And the only problem is the way the questions are worded, it's hard to know if the answer you're getting back is good news or bad news. So, is yes a good answer or is no a good answer? And that depends on the question and qualified and unqualified and all that. So, page 67, and I can tell you that every answer on this page was the best possible answer it could be, with the exception of the second one about the one that was answered yes on number 2, significant deficiencies identified not considered to be material weaknesses. For the magnitude of the institution that we have, for the millions of dollars flowing through here, and even comparing ourselves to ourselves in prior years, this is really a job well done. So I think that's the simple answer. And finally, the board did, during the course of the audit meeting, excuse all the PCC staff and met privately with the auditors and had some discussions, including discussions of the PCC staff, their cooperation, their forthrightness with the auditors, and their total, we tried to get the dirt on whoever we could. And in general, it was a very glowing report. I mean, unequivocally, it was a very glowing report of the financial management of the team, of the process of the audit, for Dr. Van Pelt and his entire cooperation. I think the comment was made that the auditors have been where there have been audits, and the head person of finance was an interim, and when you saw Rick's work, it was obvious he did it with a passion and concern for the college that transcended an interim position. Mm-hmm. And great report for Odessa Walker and all her hard work. So I want to give the full board confidence that that's something we insist on in the audit committee, is a little time alone. And everything we heard was just overwhelmingly positive about the entire PCC staff.
That is quite true. Dr. Van Pelt and Odessa Walker were given appropriately very, very good comments about the work that they had done, the cooperation they had engaged in, and everything. So we're, again, very, very fortunate to have terrific staff people, terrific people working in this fine college. Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to accept? I guess we accept it is what we're doing here.
So moved.
Is that the action?
To receive it?
Right.
Receive it.
Second.
It's been moved to, and seconded, we receive the audit. Any further questions or comments? Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
I want to say how much I enjoy Heidi and the firm. Value the difference. PTD. I know so.
Okay, we now come to the joyful part of the evening, a second quarterly financial status report. Discussion with possible recommendation.
Yes, son. As Rick goes to the podium, item H has been amended. It's not, strictly speaking, a quarterly financial status report. The operating statements for a financial status report, since we had the audit today, are in the final process of being prepared, and so we'll have that for the February 2nd meeting. So what Rick has prepared for us is a brief update on the budget situation and the facts as we know them and what the implications are moving forward.
So the news is mildly put bleak. With the governor proposing to cut the expenditures by about $12.5 billion and to extend or to raise taxes by another $12 billion in order to deal with the budget deficit. I think that bleak is an accurate word for what the budget outlook is for the next year. Now, what I'd like to do is to tie in the presentation that I made December the 8th, and I prepared this and I think it's in the sleeves of your binders, which is page 8, and I'll do this kind of in reverse order, the presentation that I made, slide number 8. And I'd just like to point out that we were projecting a budgetary shortfall of $25 billion, which is very accurate. The $12 billion plus the $12.5 billion that the governor is proposing adds up, of course, to $24.5 billion. Community college budget, we were projecting that it was possible for there to be a mid-year budget cut for this year, and that amount was projected to be $250 million. PCC's share of that would be $5 to $6 million, and I'll point out in a minute that we're really at $5.3 million, although it's not going to be for this year, it would be for next year. That's generally considered to be the best case scenario. Now, on December the 8th, I also said that the $800 million cut to the system, I didn't even want to do the math on, but normally our share is 2%. So, of course, 2% of $800 million is $16 million. And as it turns out, that's precisely the number that's the worst case scenario that was presented. And we also said that the workload would be reduced, and I'll show you in a second how that could take place. Now, to move to the page right before that in my packet, this is a sheet that we got from the League. And what they did is they did projections for each one of the districts. So when you click on Pasadena City College, what you see is 3 scenarios. The first scenario is to assume that the June tax package will be approved. That's the best case scenario. And you'll see that our net reduction would be about $5.3 million. They're assuming that by raising student fees to $40 per unit, that it would raise a little better than $2 million. That would offset, and this is a presumption on everybody's part, that this is really how it would work, that it would offset $2 million off a $7 million cut in order to leave $5.3 million net cut. You also see that they're projecting that that would impact 2,489 students that would be unfunded. Now, the next package is if the tax package fails, but Proposition 98 is funded at minimum levels. And you'll see what that does is there's an $11.3 million cut projected, the same $2 million for student fee increase, so a net decrease of $9.3 million, and the number of students to be unfunded would be 4,377. And then finally is the catastrophic choice, which is that the budget package fails and Prop 98 is suspended. So this is the $16.4 million I was just referring to. Again, the $2 million netted off, to leave $14.4 million. And then notice that the number of students unfunded would be 6,770. So what we're in the process of doing, as Ed Martinez mentioned earlier, is we're putting together the Budget and Resource Allocation Committee. That's going to happen pretty quickly, and we're going to start to meet very quickly, and we will start to develop the options for dealing with the three scenarios.
Are there questions of Dr. Van Pelt?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, Ms. Martin.
Lost student, define lost, what a student is on this projection. Is that an FTES? Is that a student in a class?
That is an FTES.
That's an FTES. So one FTES would be the equivalent of, give it to me in terms of a full-time student taking 4 or 5 classes. What would be the equivalent of a single FTES in actual students in sections, or a student in multiple sections?
A full-time equivalent student would be 12 units.
So every one student on here constitutes 12 less units some student is taking. So it'd be comparable to multiple students each taking a class.
That's correct.
Times 3 or 4.
And I think that in terms of the scale of this, Los Angeles Community College District was projecting that essentially they'd close a college down. In terms of the magnitude of the loss.
Trustee Martin, to try and put it in clearer terms, we offer about, if I remember Sabah's report from that last time, about 5,400 sections of classes throughout fall, winter, spring, and summer. 5,400. Okay, and that was, I think, give or take the information we presented that Dean Sabah presented on December 8th. What that number represents is not only will we sustain a cut in cash of $5.3 million, but we are being asked to reduce our FTS enrollment by 2,489. In fact, Chancellor Scott has been adamant about this because of academic quality issues. To give you an idea, to take the entire cut, which is not to say that we'll do it this way, it would take cutting all of summer sections and all of winter sections just to balance the budget against the cut. Okay. So, and I think that's, which is not to say that I'll be, and the committee will be bringing that recommendation, but it is to say that at this point we don't see a way to have a budget for 11-12 without some reductions. And so, but we offered about 315 sections in the winter session, give or take, that's undergoing right now.
352.
We have about, pardon me?
352.
315. And how many are we anticipated to offer in the summer?
About that many.
About that many. So between winter and summer, we're offering something on the order of between 600 and 700 sections. And that's about equal in cash to $5.3 million, give or take.
And that's the best case scenario, 700
that
class sections.
That would be the best case scenario at this point. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Fellow?
Can I add on to that? And I don't know if you can answer this, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have this year about 8,000 students who were admitted but couldn't get classes.
Correct.
And if we did the worst case scenario, this could possibly double.
Correct.
Well, it's not good. I'll say that. I do think there are, and let me just address it this way as a practical matter for all of the members and for also my colleagues who will be serving. First of all, I want to describe that we have a process well in hand to take this up. Thanks to the leadership of Ed Martinez and others, we have revised our process in the College Council. We have reconstituted an enrollment management committee, which will govern the recommendations on sections, and we've reconstituted a new budget and resource allocation committee that will have college-wide participation, including students. And I've talked to Jamie and Nolan about making sure that we have the student representation on those two committees, and that those representatives are, kind of plug out to further student consultation. So we have a good process in hand. And who, Rick, are the co-chairs of the budget committee?
Well, I'm one, and Ed Martinez is appointing the other.
Okay. So the co-chairs, Ed and Rick, for example, will go to the budget committee, and we'll be convening this by about the end of this month. And they will be given not proposals, but first of all, transparently, you just saw it, the audit, all of the information we possess about the budget. And then the second thing is that they'll be presented with all the possible options. For example, do all the cuts and sections, do half of the cuts and sections and half with something else, do no cuts and sections and all of something else. And then, of course, there's a revenue piece that we'll be looking at. We've been talking about, that part of the solution here is that we're going to have to expand revenue. So those committees will convene. They'll be doing real work, and they'll be handing out recommendations to me for what the 11-12 budget will be. I'm asking the committees to work to what we would call the best case scenario, to work to the 5.3 and give me a recommendation for that I can work on and then hand up to the board. And then obviously we'll have to move through the spring and see where we stand with the governor's budget and the tax situation. There are some options. I cannot say, and I want to be clear, that I cannot say that we can get through this next year without reductions everywhere. It's not possible. But I do think that there are things that we can do because, as you pointed out, we are well managed. There are things that we can do to make sure that the interests of students and instruction are the highest priority, and that there won't be, we won't have to reduce force except through natural retirements and attrition. So I know that's a lengthy tag on, but I just wanted to make sure that the trustees understood that we were on plan. And in fact, if you go back to the meeting of December 8th, that what Rick predicted would happen happened almost to the penny. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and we'll bring the milk and cookies to the committees and work on this. But I think we can get through this together, but we'll obviously need to make some changes. So,
is there anything from the Chancellor's perspective, Jeff, that you'd like to add?
No, just one thing we adopted in the Board of Governors was a goal of, and it's right across the top of this sheet, advocacy, because I have confidence that this administration, this college is well managed, will figure out a process to absorb the change. It will be painful. It's going to not be easy, and folks will be impacted. But how can we address the larger issue? We have a whole new set of players in Sacramento. The last governor said, at least with the budget, that he would veto any budget that cut higher education. That's no longer the case right now, and there's a whole new State Board of Education, there's a whole new governor's administration, gubernatorial administration, and there's a whole new Congress in Washington that all have opportunities to make resource decisions and how they're going to be directed. Are they going to be made toward investments in higher education? Are they going to be made toward other purposes? And so we have to get our message out. We've been somewhat complacent because we've had a very sympathetic governor's office the last few years, and it was very helpful to the community college system. Now we have to gear up and get out there and make our voices heard, because this is a tragedy in some ways that to see that of all things, the community college system is going to become a scarce resource, that people have to scramble and compete with each other to have access to education. And then to add insult to injury, we're going to increase the fees charged to students by another 30-some%, so that burden will get even more of a challenge for students to meet. So what we're looking at from the state level is that this is a call to arms as far as articulating the impact and the value and the investment needed. And I think students are going to have to play, their voices are as powerful as anybody's when it comes to, because you're the ones that, the students are the ones that are directly impacted. And to make sure the policymakers and the folks who are making the budget decisions at least try to do less harm to students than we've already witnessed. And that's the only hope. We say it's a $5.2 million at the best case scenario for PCC. And then my hope is if we all come together, faculty, students, administrators, and community members, we'll at least be able to demonstrate that a dollar invested in community college instruction provides a significant benefit to the state's economic environment, and that will actually help grow the state's economy to meet some of these budget challenges that are coming forward. So that's what we're going to be doing. It's why I'm glad that a number of our colleagues are planning to go to Sacramento in a couple weeks and then to Washington, D.C. in a couple weeks. This is not the time to kind of say, oh, we've got to kind of retrench and be back in the district and focus, because we're going to have to focus our efforts as much externally as we do internally.
Good comments. Anything else on this?
I think what's even more, in my point of view, and at the university, it's even more tragic for young people because, the state says we have to admit qualified transfer students, but the universities are going to up GPAs to 3.7 because we no longer have the money to accept students. We have to reduce enrollments. It's going to be very tough times.
You're helping us segue into the next agenda item almost. But before we do that, I've been handed a card from Ms. Sally Hsu, agenda item on education. Is this the item? Yes. Okay.
This is my first time speak in front of everyone, special the TV camera right here. I'm not planning to come here tell everybody my problem, but I feel this is very important. My problem could be our next generation problem as well, because I believe education can influence everybody reach their personal goal, or behave. That's very important. But while I become Pasadena City College students since 1994, when I immigrated USA 1987, May 5th. So, calculated, I have been here 24 years. And I never got a job more than 18 months. I asked myself, do I have a mental problem? Do I have an ability problem? I do my best. I learn my English. And then most time I apply online. I send out a resume to everybody. And now it's time for me to transfer to Cal State LA. I'm not asking everyone, help me out, help with my finance. I'm very happy going out to work to get a job, at least pay my basic need, such as bus fare, pay the bus ticket. Because right now I'm walking from Alhambra to here each way 2 hours, and I have to walk back. I never, planning ask my classmate, or anybody give me a ride. My own daughter, who go to UCLA, and she pay my rent. Is that embarrassing? So I'm just, I'm spraying that's my feeling and my concern. You know, if education cannot change anyone, the person, you know, personal, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous in front of you speaking. I shouldn't do that. It just come out of my mind. I don't want my life be that way again. I see right now I am just like average, you know. Maybe can be a little bit, a few years less than you. And I never have what's a retirement plan. I don't have a roof over my head. What I'm doing here? Thank you very much for your listen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and we admire you for being in school and coming and bringing the issue to our attention. And I think we all agree with you, without any dissent whatever, that education really is a critical issue for not just our community, but for our state and our nation. And that's why this whole discussion about money, about the budget, is so very frustrating for all of us. And we understand your viewpoint completely, and we empathize with you on it. So with this marvelously uplifting discussion, we now get to move on to transfers, and Ms. Chase will bring us up to date on that. But it ties in with what you're talking about, too, of being eligible to transfer to Cal State schools, and what are the obstacles or challenges you face in doing that?
Good evening. I'll try to make this as painless as possible. In academic year 2009-10, Pasadena City College transferred 1,418 students to the UC and Cal State systems. This is a decrease of 369 from the previous year, but it is indicative of what has happened statewide in the transfer arena. Our transfers to the UC system actually increased by 45, but the real hit came with the Cal States, where we lost 414 students. Despite all the disparity in the Cal State numbers, the college remained at number 4 statewide in the college ranking to the Cal States and to the UCs in 2009-10. The college ranked 4th in transfers to the University of California and 5th in transfers to Cal State. When we compare ourselves to the local colleges that are similar to us, either geographically or in student population, the college ranked 2nd in combined transfers to the Cal State and UCs, 2nd to the UCs, and 3rd to the Cal States. The campus destination of our students basically remained the same again. UCLA was the top destination for our students to the UC system, and Cal State LA remained the top destination for the Cal State campuses. The largest ethnic distribution went to the Asian Pacific Island population, which is also one of the largest populations here on our campus. The Latino Chicano population was the 2nd group in transferring students to the Cal State UC system, even though the Asian Pacific Island population actually transferred more than double that population of students. This pie graph represents the percentages of ethnicity transfers. Most of our data for the University of California and the California State University comes from CPEC, the California Post-Secondary Education Commission. And our data for transfers to California independent and out-of-state public and independent institutions come from the National Clearinghouse. In 2009-10, raw data from the Clearinghouse illustrated that we had 1,728 PCC students enrolled at California independent colleges and public and independent colleges and universities out of state. And the tables denote the top ranking of which institutions our students were enrolled at in California and out of state. And I believe that the board has a packet with a listing of other colleges that our students transferred to. What are some of the trends impacting transfer? Well, obviously, educational costs and the budgets do impact the enrollment capacities, and we see that at the Cal State level this year. It was something that they projected would happen, and obviously it came about. SB 1440 brings with it some opportunities for our students not only to earn degrees and to get guaranteed transfer to certain Cal State campuses, but it also poses some challenges for us as well. And in order for us to truly meet the needs of our students, we really need to advocate for those changes that are taking place both locally and statewide. And our ability to help our students succeed is going to really depend on how well we can accommodate those students. Now, in terms of our action plan, the educational master plan that you've all heard about in Project 90 have laid out some groundwork for how we will be able to accommodate those students in the future. And I'm also suggesting that we explore some guaranteed course program plans for all of our enrolled students. It's difficult, it's going to take work, but I think that it can be accomplished. We just have to put our thinking caps on and figure out a way to do it. We need to continue early introduction about the transfer process to our students. You know, the former thoughts of waiting for them to think about transfer a year or two after they've been here, that's gone. I mean, we can't think like that anymore. From the point of admission is when they need to start hearing about transfer, if that's their goal, or at least to introduce them to the option so that we can prepare them early enough to get on track. We want to emphasize transfer admission guarantees that already exist with the UCs that will be coming up, hopefully with the Cal States, and as well as encourage more of our independent institutions to take part in those. And we want to look at examining how we examine our transcript evaluation process. Not just how are we doing now to evaluate those transcripts of students that are here and moving on, but how are we going to look at those students that are coming in so that we can understand where they're at, what level they're at, and then place them appropriately so they don't waste a lot of time. That concludes my presentation. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Dina? Mr. Martin.
Dina, when I was a student here, there was a special transfer relationship between PCC specifically and UCLA specifically for junior status. In all the transfer upheaval that's occurring with the new legislation and all that, do we still have that kind of
UCLA does, yes we do. To answer the question, yes we do. UCLA doesn't guarantee admission to anybody, but we do have through the Scholars Program a priority consideration, which is about as close to a guarantee as you can get. And basically what that does is it requires the student to take 6 courses they would normally take anyway, but are required to take a little bit more work in those courses. That's what makes them a scholar student, an honor student. What we have found is that the majority of those students who participate in that program are admitted to UCLA. So while UCLA doesn't give a guarantee, the Scholars Program provides an avenue of the closest thing to a guarantee that we can give them with UCLA.
Are there questions?
Well, I comment. So looking through your report, and by the way, I want to thank you for your report because I think you did an incredible job of giving a lot of information succinctly and clearly without taking a lot of time. if you would have asked me, first reaction, what's the number one institution PCC students transfer to, I would have just said Cal State LA, followed by maybe Fullerton, Northridge, someplace in there, UCLA, USC. When I look across the pages between publics, privates, UCs, and Cal States, and I see UCLA 190, Cal State LA 280, USC 177, it all makes sense. And then you see, dwarfing them all, University of Phoenix, 323.
Now remember, that is National Clearinghouse data. When the National Clearinghouse gives us data, it doesn't necessarily mean that those students transferred or they were enrolled, but they didn't necessarily transfer in that time frame. There is some speculation as to how many of our students in a given year are there. We're dependent upon the recording practices of the institutions. That's what's always been so difficult when we're looking at independence and out of state. And we have to rely on what their data is. We don't have our own data. And obviously that is something that we're talking about, what we need to do in order to confirm our own data. Clearinghouse data, again, that's raw data. It doesn't differentiate, those numbers don't differentiate between students with more than 12 units, fewer than 12 units. Were they enrolled at Phoenix while they were enrolled here? There's no differentiation in those numbers.
And so when you look at these numbers, let's just assume they're right, because at least if not, they're not right, at least they're an independent source. The colleges fall in different leagues, and there's definitely a cluster in the 170 to 190 range with USC, UCLA, Northridge, Pomona, the ones you would expect. A league above that is Cal State LA, and yet a league above that is the University of Phoenix. I'm not saying this comment to make it some kind of judgmental good or bad thing. I'm saying this comment that when the facts present themselves like that, it requires us as an institution to view that and think upon it and think to ourselves, what is that telling us, and what should we be doing differently?
The need of the student. Yes.
To fit the student need based on the data we're getting.
Yeah.
Rather than try to submarine it or highlight it, I'm saying to myself, what does that mean? And what should we as an institution to better reach to our students be doing? For one thing, we ought to be talking with Cal State LA and the University of Phoenix somehow, some way, because we got a lot of people going that way. And I'm sure we are, but I'm just saying it just is a point that I think the data needs to be articulated, that in a league of their own for the moment is the University of Phoenix. Let's recognize that and deal with it.
Dr. Rocha?
No, just I think you're right on the money. A lot of this, first of all, I appreciate your comments of commending Dina and the staff. You can see this again. This is well managed, but we now have an Ed Master Plan which says that our number one goal is transfer. Okay, and it has an accountability scorecard. So one of the things that we will do is decide priorities about resources, and we know that if we allocate resources to the transfer operation, that will get results. So that's a good thing. The second thing is that with respect to Phoenix, it is not a surprise that Phoenix would have a large number of our students, whether they be fully transfer eligible or not, because in a competitive marketplace, Phoenix's pitch has been, we'll take you, they won't. Okay, so now one of the implications, though, as you've been, I'm sure, following the recent press accounts about for-profit education, is that Phoenix's own enrollment is plummeting because of the oversight, the greater oversight that the federal government is giving to for-profit colleges. That'll mean a different problem because students who previously had that as an option will probably think twice. So one of the things, I think the two most promising areas are, one is, as Dina pointed out, SB 1440, and the Senate is hard at work on that. And I've had specific meetings with Jim Rosser, myself recently, and about hooking the faculties together on real 2+2 programs. And SB 1440, I think, is one of our kind of critical paths to increasing the transfers quite a bit. And then we will have to look at every venue. There are, obviously USC, there are more and more students are looking at private schools, and those are good, transfer options as well. So I think that, we're at the beginning of this, but I think the information that Dina is presenting will enable us to, really increase that, because we know where they've been and where they're going now. So,
Mr. Baum?
Oh, it's Mr. Martinez.
Okay, Mr. Martinez.
Yes, I'd just like to point out, as the former articulation officer, that number for the University of Phoenix is indeed troubling, especially in the light of the fact that we do not have an articulation agreement with the University of Phoenix. We have declined that over the past few years.
They'll just take every unit.
Dr. Fella?
I think Mr. Baum.
Well,
Yeah,
sure. First off, again, I share in my admiration and respect for Dina and the team, and the numbers certainly bear that out. And I was always wondering, when we adopted the master plan, was this something that you thought of as a really exciting opportunity to be PCC the top transfer, or was it a frightening challenge to
I
take
think
on?
it's wonderful. As a first-generation college student, I think one of the reasons I got into this business was because I knew firsthand what it was like to go to college and to be the first in the family to go to college. And then by the grace of God, I landed here at PCC and somehow landed in the transfer arena. And it's not a job, but it's a passion. So when I saw those numbers, I think not only are they doable, we may already be there, and we may have to increase our number rating.
Well, I'm excited as a trustee by that, and I'm looking forward to knocking off Santa Monica from its perch.
Me too.
And as well as a few other, and I think SB 1440, I'm so gratified to hear the progress and the measures we're taking to implement SB 1440, because that's going to provide a tremendous tool. And the other untold, well, it's not an untold story, but I always try to tell it each time, is when you look at this list and you look at where PCC students are transferring to, when you not only have the major institutions that we talked about, UCLA and others, but you see that we're transferring several students each year to Stanford, to Georgetown,
New York
to
University.
NYU, to Johns Hopkins. I mean, that's what I also take to my district. If you want to go to these top-tier universities, come to PCC, because we will help you on your path to those institutions. There were a couple of puzzling things to me. First off, I was surprised that at Caltech there's only one student that transferred this past year to Caltech. And I thought we'd had a number of connections with Caltech to try to facilitate more transfer.
Yeah, again, Caltech does not articulate with us. We have somewhat of an understanding of courses that they will consider the best transfer pathway to Caltech as we have. Again, the way those schools report numbers may not be accurate. When we look at data that's given to us by Clearinghouse, this is what they say is enrolled in 2009-10. Now, when that student transferred, there may be more there that transferred in 09-10.
Oh, I understand it.
But
right.
Where they're all shifting out,
It just seems, and is it something we've attempted to establish an articulation with Caltech? Is that a priority, just given the obvious?
We have been in touch with them in the past, but again, they have not offered to enter into full articulation with us. They have only given us really some very general guidelines that we can share with students about the transferability of courses. We do have a few students on campus from Caltech who are usually referred to us to make up work.
I would just,
to make up a deficiency
is there
that
something
they're
that
experiencing
we
there.
should bring up with the president or the provost there too, just because I think they would like to showcase their relationship with the district?
I did. Okay. So I had lunch with the president of Caltech just before the holidays. But I would say one of the things about it, it's not anything against Caltech or us, but schools like Caltech, the Ivy League schools, MIT, have a freshman to senior completion rate of like 95%. Mm-hmm. So Caltech has almost no seats for they just not in the transfer business.
That's right.
So having said that, though, in speaking with the president, you're aware that we have great programs in biotechnology and the stem cell program and so on. We have internships and other relationships. So we are have engaged Caltech about trying to expand the opportunity. I don't think it'll be ever, though, one of our biggest franchises.
Oh, sure. I see some development opportunities for both Caltech and us.
Sure.
They have also always expressed an interest in diversifying their student body for a variety of reasons. Last one is just, it said Harvard.
I'm going to make a point that MIT had 100% more transfers to MIT than Caltech. You can make that point with him.
That's right.
So I would
PCC.
encourage the administration to pursue that line.
We will.
And it said, I just was surprised that it said Harvard. Was this a typo? It says Harvard Business School as opposed to Harvard.
That's the way it came out in the data. So I'm thinking that it was a specific major. It was major specific.
Maybe, yeah. I wouldn't see. Harvard Business School is a graduate school business, and I wouldn't anticipate a PCC student transferring to the business
directly
school.
into the graduate school, correct.
But I do know we transfer students to Harvard every year as well.
That's true. That's true.
Dr. Fellows?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to, I think Mr. Martin asked a very important question, is why is University of Phoenix so popular? And it's something we're going to have to study at the university, and they do two things right. Students are able to get classes, and secondly, online, which is what students want. Students want to get through a program as quickly as possible today. They want to get into the job market, and it's something we have to study. And we are at the university because they're doing something right, but certainly not a top-tier school to go to.
And, when they first started to market themselves, really, that's what they did offer to their students, a plan where they could get in and get out. They knew exactly what courses those students were going to be taking during their time there. There was no guesswork in it. I agree. Probably we need to take a look at what some of the strategies they're utilizing are and implement some of those for our students' benefit as well.
I hope the state legislature is listening tonight, because 1440 is a very good bill. But the state's going to have to realize we need money to transfer students in. If you have no money, it's a joke.
The Cal State numbers show it.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that Dr. Sugimoto is sitting here listening to all this, because she's going to take the PCC Foundation to newfound heights, right? Right, Shirley? Other questions or comments on this topic? Well, thank you very, very much for an excellent presentation. And the report really is impressive, because, as was pointed out, this does show that we've had this past year students transferring to almost all of the top schools in the country, and that speaks very, very well for Pasadena City College. So a lot to be proud of, but obviously a lot of work yet to be done as we move forward. So the next item on our agenda is a public hearing regarding initial bargaining proposal for 2010-2011 from the Pasadena Area Community College District, the Pasadena City College Instructional Support Services Unit, ISSU. Hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to address the board with respect to this item? Okay. Hearing is now closed. Any other action to be taken on this?
That'll close it. We'll authorize our lead negotiator to go to work.
Okay. He's had nothing to do this past several weeks.
In fact, negotiations begin on Friday.
Okay. The next item is item K, CCCT nominations, discussion with possible action. All this really is announcing that the nominating period is open for those positions. It closes February 15th. Dr. Mann is not here this evening. If anybody knows of someone considering applying or whatever, I would recommend strongly that they be referred to Dr. Mann to talk. And she'll be back with us at our February 2nd meeting, and we'll have this item back on the agenda at that time. So. Okay. Future board meeting dates. We've got the 29th of this month, the board retreat starting at 8:30. Have we found a place for that yet?
Yes, the 29th. Okay. Item L might be our most controversial item tonight. We got to get the board meetings. On Saturday, January 29th, will be the board retreat. It'll be held at the Athenaeum. Wednesday, February 2nd, will be a regular board meeting here, of course. Should not clear why that says 6 o'clock. It should be noted that unless that we will be starting closed sessions at 5:30, and that the regular open session would be 7 o'clock, and that's our new practice anyway, unless it's noticed otherwise. So I ask Mary to note that. Now Thursday, February 17th. Study session. The regular board meeting was scheduled for February 16th, of course, but several of the trustees and I will be in Washington on the 16th, coming back from the National Legislative Conference, and for that, then we also apologize to Trustee Wah, who went to a lot of trouble to arrange the February 16th meeting it's at the San Marino Library. So we have moved the regular Wednesday meeting or the study session to Thursday, February 17th. Okay.
And that will be in San Marino, I believe.
It actually will not.
They could not get a room in San Marino.
Right. So
South Pasadena, but
so that study session will be here.
Oh, okay.
We'll be on campus somewhere.
Mr. Baum?
Could I just raise the prospect to just only have one meeting in February and dispense with the study session, given that a number of members of the board and others will be doing district business for much of that week already, to then have to call everybody back for a study session meeting, especially that we're not having a community partner for that meeting. I would recommend that we actually only have one meeting in February.
Well, let us take that under advisement and see how things go with respect to the state budget and issues of that sort, because there may be some pressing issues that we're going to want to address. But let's just say for now, we're going to schedule it for Thursday, February 17th here, and we can cancel it if nothing that is of an emergency nature or a pressing nature. But I'd say for now, let's keep it on the agenda.
Can I mention that we are welcome at Arcadia High School this semester?
Okay. All right. Maybe we can explore that for February 17th. But I think what we've decided and what we really want to do is to move the study sessions around the entire college area, college district area, and address some of the issues that have been raised before. So that would be terrific if we could do that, if we could do it in Arcadia or someplace else. Now, what's just briefly, let's go over the March schedule.
Yeah, well, and for February 17th, by the way, the venue for that is slated for here, but we're also, if it's okay with Trustee Brown, to look at putting that out at the JRC, the Jackie Robinson Center, and so that we could take care of that need. So tentatively, the meeting will be February 17th at this point at the JRC. Now into March, we'll have our regular meeting in March, the first Wednesday. Okay. Then now we get into the tall grass. We are proposing the joint board meeting with PUSD that we've been long trying to put together on Tuesday, March 15th. So here I'll turn to Bob.
And that's simply the issue that in working with Superintendent Diaz and his staff, they would be available and would be very happy to have the joint meeting with our board on Tuesday the 15th, which would obviously necessitate your changing your meeting from Wednesday night to Tuesday night. And they have a location that Mary and others have set up at the Senior Center on Holly in Pasadena.
Didn't we have something on the following day too, the 16th? Or am I?
I think that was the regular meeting.
Yeah, the 16th is the regular meeting of this
study
board.
Session.
Okay, so we're going to not have the study session, or
that's the recommendation. That is, and essentially the study session would be the joint meeting. But at the board's pleasure, if the board felt we also should meet on Wednesday, the 16th, we could also do that.
Okay. Well, obviously the schedule's in a bit of flux at the moment. So, but is it the desire of the board to? Can PUSD meet with us on that Wednesday evening, the 16th?
Not that I'm aware of at this point. We could go back and ask them, but it's my understanding that they would prefer their regular meeting date, which is the 15th. They meet on Tuesdays.
I didn't quite ask you what they preferred. I said, could they do it on our regular meeting date, Wednesday?
We could certainly go back and ask them that.
I would prepare the board based on our discussions that they'll, have some difficulty with that. Since it was our study session, and not our regular meeting, we felt that we could accommodate if we wanted to get the meeting in March. We can defer the meeting, and we will ask and push for Wednesday, but we also need to be prepared for them to say that wouldn't work for them.
Where are we thinking the meeting is with them? It would be at the Senior Center in Pasadena, where you were last time on Holly, right? On kind of neutral ground there. Yeah.
I actually don't want to be a skunk at the party, but I would recommend not having that meeting on that date. That is a week after the election. They will either be seating new members, or they may be in the middle of a campaign for a runoff on seats, and I don't want to have our meeting in the middle of their organization and election period, and would recommend that we don't have a meeting with the PUSD board until after their election cycle has concluded.
That's actually a very good point, because I think at least one of the races is contested, and maybe one or two others are as well. So there could be some. In fact, I know one incumbent is not running, so there's going to be at least one new member of the board. So maybe it would be better just to push that back to the following month.
Got that?
Yeah, I do, and I will also try to get it on our April meeting, which, if I look at this correctly, our regular meeting in April is April 6th.
But we have
that's with the associated students.
We have
So
a students meeting. So it could happen in May or June, as far.
yeah, maybe the May 4th date, the regular meeting in May 4th might be a better option. If the
But
board.
I just don't know when that runoff election, that might be the first week of, I just don't know.
Well, okay, I think we're getting the message that March 16th is not a good date for the joint meeting, so.
Okay.
15th, sorry, excuse me, March 15th.
Was told to cancel it because you're going to have it in Pasadena.
We could have, if we meet on March 16th, which I believe is the Wednesday, that would be a study session that could well be in San Marino then.
Okay, because they reserved the room for us there.
Keep it.
Okay.
On March 16th.
Yeah, all right.
Keep it.
Anything else on calendars? Future board items, any future agenda items, anything that, Jeff?
I just want to make sure we have an annual review on the student activities fee and how it's been collected, how many students have requested refunds, and how those funds have been expended, especially as we're looking toward a major increase in student fees. I want to make sure we're doing our due diligence in deciding whether that we should impose that student activities fee for the coming year, that it's not rolled over automatically.
Okay, any other future agenda items? Anything else to be raised in the meeting? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.